have a t-shirt on underneath there with a big
You don't necessarily use this, but you have a sheet that you pull up and just describes the different classes.
You know, I think I'm just running out of my head, but
I know you have it, it was just more visual if they want to see it.
Kim, you have water?
I'm good, thanks.
Right.
Getting a lot of sun on that east side of your house now.
I'm looking at that going, okay, I've gotta,
Is
I
this
got so much grading and
the
redo
area
the
of
landscape so I
Layton
can get,
that
put
slept away?
landscape back in.
Well, I just was like, that's east side, all that beautiful foliage, and I just was like, oh joy.
Yeah,
Cost more to clean your house.
yeah. Well, after, what, 35 years, I at least can say I have AC now.
I didn't recognize.
I've never had it.
I didn't recognize your house. Come home and
When the trees were down?
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
It'll get
my
more
wife said,
interesting.
hey, look, they built an old house.
It's an affordable house.
An affordable.
okay, I think we got everybody here, so Kim, you good? All right, well, welcome everyone to our Layton City Council work meeting tonight. It is the August 7th meeting, and we've got a few things on the agenda, but I want to welcome everyone that's here and understand that the conversation that takes place generally is just with the council. We don't really have citizens comment in this meeting, but you're certainly welcome to kind of listen and understand everything that goes on. So with that, I'm going to start out with item number 1, which is the mayor's report. And what's that smart aleck? Yeah. So, like we discussed before, I mean, summer months, most of the meetings are light. The only thing I have to report is we did have a legislative affairs meeting this morning, and it was interesting. They had Congressman Moore speak first, and he went into not details, but he spoke a lot about I guess, the taxes and the changes that are taking place, and that he's still gonna work hard to kind of, make sure to try to keep everything down for us, but certainly the budget's is a big issue, but the question was raised also about immigration, because, that's first and foremost for a lot of us as well. And he feels like the president is really going to start coming around, because he understands the impact it's had on businesses and farms, in particular farming industry. So he says, since I think things will kind of move in the right direction on that, but he's still very adamant about making sure people's legal coming in here. And then President Adams spoke afterwards, and the conversation started out with somebody asking about housing right to begin with. And, he addressed it the best he could. It's everything that we've heard in the past. There's no real clear solution, but his message I thought was pretty strong. And he says, I don't feel like we have a housing crisis. What we've got is we've got a lot of NIMBYism going on. He says, you look at it, all of us are the ones that do not want any multi-housing dwelling in our area. We feel like that it's being overfilled, but he says realistically, he says we're our own worst enemy, because we're the ones that need to provide for our kids. They need places to live. But he says until you really change that cultural shift as far as understanding that affordability only comes with condensed residential space, he says that we're never going to tackle it. So I thought that was pretty clear message. From that, my only other report is going to be, we had a Meet the Candidates meeting, or Layton Fest had all the candidates, invited them out to Layton Fest. I had a lot of good positive feedback from numerous people, both candidates as well as residents, saying that was a great way to do things. They commented the staff on setting that up and the fairness of it. But what come of that also was some interesting information or some citizens' input as far as the issue that we have within the city. There was a special meeting held last night in a neighborhood, and all candidates were invited to come up to that meeting. And so I elected to go, Bettina elected to go, and it's something that, you know, I think that as the governing body here, we probably need to address it as well. More importantly, you know, the city and the staff. I mean, it's something that there's the right way to go about things, and then there's could be chaos ways of going about things. So I just would like to be in front of that. I took some very copious notes as far as all the information that was brought up. I'll share those with you, but I mean, do you want to hear the whole list, or really what we boiled it down to? I'll give you guys the choice here. The neighborhood, just so you know where we're talking about, is if you go up Fort Lane and you cross Antelope, it's the first street that you would turn to go west, and there's some commercial businesses along there, and then you go into a neighborhood. And what's happening is those commercial buildings are really impacting that neighborhood. It's gotten to the point where I guess a lot of the folks feel like their kids can't go out and play at all because there's a lot of trucks coming and going through the neighborhood rather than coming off of Fort Lane. Parking's a big issue. They come and park all through the neighborhood, as well as speed, the bigger trucks, the delivery trucks. There's all kinds of just added traffic that's cutting through the neighborhood versus using Fort Lane as the main access, which I think probably when this was all approved back when, that was, I'm sure, the intent at the time. But unfortunately, as time's gone on, it's kind of, you know, evolved into what it is today. They're questioning, you know, obviously speed's a big factor, but the other thing is, aside from the parking's been the biggest concern, because there's parking on both sides of the street into the neighborhood, but then any of the delivery trucks that come in there to deliver to these businesses are parking in the middle of the road. So you can't really, you can barely sneak by, I guess, or depending on how the big truck parks, you might be able to go on one side. But they're very concerned about that because it's been ongoing. Also, the amount of people that might be working there as opposed to how many should be working there, based upon the agreements that we have for that particular zone, because this is part of the acre zone. Let's see, I won't call out any of the businesses, but one in particular is a big violator, but they're trying to work with them. There's also questioning people might be living in some of the buildings / the storage sheds up there because they're hearing the doors open and close real early in the morning, like 4 a.m. on, and also late at night. Let's see, they have been talking to code enforcement, which is good. We've already talked about the occupancy, but they're worried that their home values will go down based upon all of the issues, which I know that these, what I'm, I guess, addressing here now is something that I know we've heard before in other parts of our city. But one of the other things that came out that I think is a factor is there is a repair shop on Antelope, on Fort Lane, on the corner of Fort Lane and Antelope, and where that road really isn't finished, we don't have curb gutter sidewalk in that area. So any of the cars that need to be repaired are parking basically on the street there, and so it's really choking the entrance going up Fort Lane. And depending on the amount of cars the guy's dealing with, it gets quite a few stacked in there. So, you know, that was the other takeaway. So, I just wanted to make sure that we're all aware of this. I mean, some of you might have seen the flyer that was sent out the other day, but it becomes, phone's recording me. But again, this is something that I think that, we could probably, a few things we could address maybe. I did speak to Alex on this, and, Alex, I know we maybe think that perhaps putting up some signage to begin with would be a good start, right?
We can look at it, we'll talk internally with the staff and see what we can do to help stem the issues.
Yeah. Primarily, at least trying to keep the businesses that exist from parking in the neighborhoods. Now, granted, it's public streets, but at the same time, that's just being respectful in the fact that this is a. you know,
Is there
neighborhood.
access in the subdivision to this,
Neighborhood?
to the commercial?
Yeah, so.
Yeah, you can come the other
That's
way.
kinda odd, isn't it?
Well, so like I said, if you go up Fort Lane and you turn
Yeah,
and go
no.
west, I can't remember the name of that street, the
Number
like
2150.
21, yeah. So you can actually go past the businesses and then you go right into the neighborhood. And then the first street that you turn
Oh,
left
I
on,
see.
you can go down and reconnect onto Antelope. So it seems like that's been a bigger where all of the traffic's coming from, being created from these businesses there. So, anyway, so, yeah, that's my biggest report for, as far as what I've got going on. So let me turn it over to the council here, and you guys can give your reports, or if you wanna add to it, that's fine. Anyone else want to do the council reports?
I know I talked about mosquitoes last meeting. I don't do that too often, but since then, you might have seen West Nile virus has been detected in Davis County. So just encourage people to be proactive in mosquito areas, protect themselves from bites. And in addition to that, the mosquito abatement district is very aggressive in trying to take care of that issue in those pools that are detected. We do a lot of sampling, a lot of testing, and try to stay ahead of it. This is late in the season compared to other years, so it's good. So we have a short season left of the mosquito season that we have the virus to battle, so just encourage people to be proactive. Don't get bit.
Yeah, that'll be easy.
We had a CTC meeting earlier this week, and we just have some events that are coming up that we'll be participating in, some with the city. A couple I'll announce during the meeting.
Okay.
And then I had what I think is probably a really good suggestion from a resident. I know we've talked in the past about the lack of space on the utility bill and adding things to it and whatnot, but when I'm talking to folks and letting them know about council meetings and how they're live streamed and they can watch them, there was a resident who asked if something like that could just be posted in the utility bill. So like council meetings are first and third Thursday, and then the YouTube link, because not everybody has, Facebook and whatever. So I thought that was a good
Just do a QR
suggestion.
code.
Yeah, it could be a QR code, but I just thought that was a good suggestion to add to the utility bill to just help residents be informed. But yeah.
Anyone else?
Nothing for me.
Okay. Good. I forgot there was one other meeting that I had that you guys probably need to be aware of, and that is the My Hometown project. We did have a meeting yesterday to kind of help, Wednesday, yeah. As far as standing up a resource center, as well as identifying some projects. And I think what we're leaning towards, and again, this is, even though it's being initiated by the LDS Church, it's really everybody in all denominations, right? But they're looking at probably starting the resource center in January. They had thought about trying to do it earlier, but by the time they get into that, I guess can get into a building, it was gonna be October, which only gave you 4 weeks before you get into the real holiday season, which nobody really attends during the holiday seasons, and they know that from other projects. So they're saying, okay, let's just wait and start in January. meanwhile, what we want to do is possibly start with a soft project. And so I suggested we do the leaves cleanup. So we'll try to organize something in probably early November, because that's about when all the leaves are off, and we'll pick a neighborhood that we can go in and help and kind of clean up and make sure that way it will help with, any of the storm drainage going forward, because, in some of these elderly neighborhoods, or neighborhoods that have a lot of elderly folks and stuff, we're gonna get their leaves cleaned up, so that's kind of the conclusion of that, or where we're at right now with that. Okay, all right, we're through with our reports. Let's go ahead and go on to our first real business portion, which Scott Bond's gonna address us regarding the fire department ladder truck.
So maybe, Mayor, I give a little bit
Yep.
of context. She can give more of the details. So fire trucks are extremely expensive, in case you haven't already know that. COVID somehow must have affected them because they're very expensive and they haven't went down. But one of the real challenges, and Chief Monk can speak to it a little further, he and I have talked at length, and Tracy's here as well, but is that it's really a supply chain issue. So if you order a fire truck, we're talking about a ladder truck the city needs to replace, can be a 4-year wait at the minimum by the time you put your order in. So it's much different than it's typically been in the past. So what we want to talk to you about is an option that we think is reasonable as we regroup with staff, but that we wanted to make sure that you understood what we were proposing to do, because it will anticipate a commitment to money in multiple years beyond just this one. But there's some savings, a pretty significant discount we can reap if we do it that way. But the ability to save up, like in the past we've done, for this kind of a purchase where we've saved up the money and then went and bought it, have it, a year later, those days are long gone and they're not coming back. So where there's a multi-year commitment beyond just this budget year, we wanted to talk to you about it and make sure that you felt that was a responsible thing to do. So that's the context and the background.
Okay. Well, that's it in a nutshell. But yes. So this truck, when we first started to think about it, our team headed by Battalion Chief Stell and Captain Hall, as they built it out, they went and saw a whole bunch of different models of this thing, and came back. Pierce is the manufacturer that we chose to go with, and they sent us out a bid, the spec, and then we got the bid, and the initial price of this thing was about $1.8 million, 1.826 thereabouts, and it fit our needs perfectly, with a estimated delivery time of 42 to 43 months from the time we say, let's do it. So the actual build time for these fire trucks are probably between 10 and 11 months, but we have to wait about 3 years before it's our turn to jump in line and go. And they, when we visited Florida, when we got our new engine, the one that replaced the one that we purchased this last year, that replaced our burnt up one, we saw what an amazing assembly line they have, and how they have more trucks outside in their yard in pieces waiting to get into the line. And it was pretty impressive. But still, 42 to 43 months is a long time. And so when they sent us our quote for $1.826 million, they also sent us 2 letters. One's the different acceptance letters for the contract, and one of them was pay upon delivery, which was the $1.8 million, and the other one was a paid in full option of $1.6 million, which was about a $220,000 savings at the time. We felt the responsible thing to do would be to run that past city leadership and Tracy and talk about those things. One of the bad, a negative on that was $1.6 million, which we did budget for. In the current budget year that we were in, we did put $600,000 away, but we don't have the other $1 million sitting around. And all of our money would be at Pierce in their bank account, making them interest. So they also did at the same time sent us a presentation on financing. Come use our bank's money and we'll still make interest on the deal. And Tracy came up with an idea to say, hey, look, why don't we, since they've offered this discount, why don't we ask them, at least ask, if they would be willing to give us a cash purchase option over with installments, a cash installment option. So $600,000 this year on September 1st, $600,000 next year on September 1st, and then the balance of $450 due on September 1st of 2027. And we at least asked about that, and they came back with that option. With that came a little bit of an increase in price from 1.826 to 1.830, because when you lease or when you do a cash purchase like this, they had failed to add about $4,700 on a bond thing to guarantee that our money would be safe. And so that's a little bit of a price difference. So they did agree to it. So we get to keep our money in our bank. We send the first installment, and then after next budget year, we'll send the next one, and then one after that. And Tracy did some quick math on the amount of money that we will earn by keeping our money here. It's about $37,000, maybe a little closer to 38, by us keeping that money and going with this cash purchase price. So we're recommending that we go ahead and do this, and as you can see by that flyer that I handed you, we're still seeing a cost savings of about $180,000 to the city. I put the payment schedule there, and as you can kind of see, the last of our money goes out of here September 1st of 2027, and we'll still have at least probably a full year and then some before we be able to go back and pick up our truck. That's just the way it's working right now. And it's a little disheartening to see it that far out, but it's what we do. And we can get in line as soon as we sign this thing. So staff is recommending that we see if we would be willing to accept that. Tracy, is there anything else I missed on that? Any questions?
We don't have a ladder truck currently.
We do.
We do.
We have one. It's a 2003. It's a mid-mount, and it is, we bought it as a demo back in 2006, I think. And it is a reserve apparatus. The ladder works, it goes, but the pump does not work. And so it's about a $60,000 fix to replace an entire pump. And we have determined and decided that that's money just kind of thrown away, because every time you use a ladder truck, you need to put a hose, you have to feed it with an engine, you have to supply it with an engine. And so we can do that with an engine and still flow as much water as we could if we had a pump in it. So we do have it. It is in reserve status. And it's a bucket one. This one is not a bucket. This is just a stick, straight stick, and the other one has a bucket on the back where we can work off the top.
The current ladder truck is well beyond its service life.
Yes.
That's the real.
So it's costing an extreme amount of money to maintain and keep up.
As you look at this truck, this is a single rear axle, where the other one's a dual. It's much heavier. This thing drives more like a fire engine, basically what we have now without the ladder on the top. Much more maneuverable, more power and everything like that. Some of the limitations on that other vehicle, the other truck that we have, is that we'll drive it for some driver's training, and because it's so heavy and there's not a lot of maneuverability, but we drag the back end of it around and we replace tires very quickly. And the service life is there's just nothing else there for it.
And this ladder will help. We've got a few buildings now that are 5 stories.
Yeah.
This will.
Depending on how close we can get to it, which is all about stuff that we talk about with community development and Doug's side of the shop and things like that. 107 feet could get us on top of probably 6 stories, maybe 7, if we could get in the right position. Because we also have to have a climbing angle, and we have to get it to, we have to put it in just the right spot. So 6 stories for sure, probably 7. And I know that the new apartments down here, I think they're 5 above ground and 2 below, so we should be able to get up on top of that. And it's not so much, it is just so we can go do some effective rescues. That's pretty tight to get in there to do those type of things. It's more about an elevated master stream, trying to get water up on top of it and get going down into it if we need to. So.
thanks.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'll back you up on the longevity as far as ordering, because I know that the sewer district has looked at other big units. And just the chassis alone was 18 months. And then on top of that, then you go through the whole building process. So I'm not surprised on something the size of this.
An ambulance. We budgeted for 2 remounted ambulances. We have those big white ambulances with the big boxes on the back. Those boxes still have life, tons of life. We are now into our 14th month of sending an ambulance back to Ohio. They take the box off, they put it on a chassis, and then they finally sent it back. It's in Salt Lake, Saturday it came. And we're
Yeah.
14 months, and they're already quoting us 18 to 24 months to do that again.
We used to be able to get ambulances in 4 to 6 months,
Yeah.
and now they're at least 24 months out.
You say you ship them,
Yeah.
the ambulance, so they come on freight like a
Yeah,
train or something?
we put the ambulance up on a flatbed,
Oh,
drive it to
okay.
Ohio, they take it off,
Okay.
and then they do
But
their
the
thing.
engine you drive?
The engine they drive, when our newest engine came, it drove from Florida. It had, what did it have, like 26 miles on it when we saw it, and then it had 2,000 and something
Yeah.
miles on it when it got here, it's like, yeah.
It's all right, just broken in for you. But yeah, well, thank you, I appreciate that. So I guess we need to give a head
Yeah,
nod
just
here.
a head nod, we prepared the document, and
Yeah.
I can sign it and send it, but we wanted to actually want to make sure that you understood what we were proposing and felt good about it.
No, it's a great idea, save money and we get to save it, not them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
When we did the budget this year, is this kind of the timeline you were thinking?
It was, well.
The timeline hasn't changed, just the offer.
The timeline didn't change. When we presented to Mr. Jensen, it was, hey, over the next 3 years, we'd like to put in 600, 600, and 600.
Yeah.
And what's changed is that us being able to do this cash installment option gives us this discount. But we do need to, we can sign the other one, that's like, we'll pay for the 1.8 on delivery, and then there's nothing we need to do. Because we can sign that one, but this one saves us the money, but it kind of gets us there.
No, clever thinking there, Tracy, good job. But yeah, I think it's a great idea. What about Clint, Zach, you guys good? Peter, good?
Thank you.
Okay, yep.
Thank you.
There you go. All right, let's see, the next one we're gonna talk about is the Davis Arts Council Agreement Update. And I know Clint, sounds like you're gonna present this. I know last one, we kinda, council asked some questions as far as some rates and everything like that, but I think we need to get this one ironed down too.
Yeah, so just a reminder, this was a contract that you all approved with, basically, the only thing left outstanding is just a rental amount. And I believe that Alex has asked Weston and his people to put together some information. Is that right there?
Okay.
Yeah, and do you have a copy of that?
I was planning on pulling up, but I can't.
And I can speak to it as well. So what
I
we-
think it's fine, just speak to it.
Yeah, I reached out based on the direction of the council to Weston, and Weston had Lon, who's good as earth to the ground with regard to commercial and office lease spaces. So he did an analysis and looked at, I'm just looking at the sheet that he sent to Weston and myself. He looked at 13 office properties that are currently for lease in Layton, and the way he looked at them was based on their underlying zoning of R1A, which is what ours is. Most of the city property, the city could build on any zone, so I don't know if that's too relevant, but anyway, that's just for perspective. And there was a wide range. The range on the low end ran from about, the lowest that they received was $11.50 per square foot. And that's, doesn't include what they call triple net. Triple net is taxes, insurance, and maintenance. And then on the high end, it was 17 per square foot without triple net. So I've got to get the base in here, but this building, the square footage that we have proposing to make available to the Arts Council is 1,584 square feet, so it's relatively small piece of property. By my calculations, the 1,584, if that was at the lowest end of that, that'd be about $17,000 a year for without the taxes, insurance, and maintenance. And of course, the taxes aren't an issue because they're government owned and so forth. One thing that I wanted to point out, and I mentioned to the mayor earlier, that from perspective, is we did when the displacement first became evident because of the need to build a new dispatch center, I'd asked Tracy and Corey to get together and to run an estimate of cost of what are we providing, in addition to the financial contribution, the cash contribution that the city makes to the Arts Council for the services they provide at the amphitheater. What would we say our in-kind are? And we were providing custodial services, we're providing utilities, we're providing a few IT services on a limited basis, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't go back and pull that out, but my memory was it was about $13,000 a year was what we were providing then. So we, from the staff's perspective, we think that if there's any desire to impose something, it'd be on that kind of a net. You've got, if the 17,000 is on the lower end, and these were all commercial spaces, they weren't government type spaces, so I don't like to make a judgment on the quality of them, the refinements of them. Government buildings are not intended to be refined and too shiny, appropriately so. So the staff feels good about what was talked about before with presented in terms of a minimal approach, but we understand that that's your decision to make. We do think that there's some logic that isn't the feeling of the council, the majority of the council, to look at some kind of a net difference between that and what we were previously contributing. If we would, and the logic for that, from my perspective at least, is that except for the displacement, this it would just be ongoing. We'd continue to do that with the escalating prices, and we haven't tried to build any inflation factor into that, set the wages and salary and those kinds of things. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense, but it was a pretty exhaustive review, and I appreciate Weston and his folks for doing that to give us some perspective, give you a better perspective.
And was there any comparisons of other cities that have Arts Council that they, that they maybe offset or pay for or whatever?
Yeah, we know of Bountiful, which we talked about before, that they charge their, it's not called the Bountiful Arts Club, you would know.
Yeah, it's the,
anyway, they pay $1, I think, a year for rental space there.
And that's a pretty big space too. It's a upstairs, downstairs type place, right? I've been there once, and I know that the whole basement area is wide open.
Yeah,
I've never seen the basement, so I've been on the
You've
first
just been
floor,
upstairs?
yeah.
Yeah, it's like.
Yeah, to my knowledge, there are not West Valley City, St. George. I don't know if any of those cities have a relationship, kind of like ours. Not that that's good or bad, but I think West Valley owns USANA, the amphitheater there, but I think they engage to a contractual basis a firm to run that. They're not involved in it themselves. I think they pay somebody to run it, manage the facility, and to book the acts. I think St. George is not tied with, they're tied with Tuacahn in terms of making a contribution, but there's the county, and they have grants and outside, a lot of benefactors, and that's an expensive operation as well. So Bountiful's probably the closest in our quick review. Dave, are you aware of any others?
I know Centerville Theater was set up as a similar type of relationship in the beginning, but I don't know how that's progressed, and to what level they pay for rent or anything at the theater there.
Yeah, was supposed to be all of Davis County, right?
Was.
Supposed to, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what maybe, I don't know how that was set up either now. Anyway.
I just want to make a comment. The last meeting we had, I didn't say anything, and I probably should have, but I just wanted to, being old, okay? When the Arts Council and the city got together, I was there. And so I got to experience everything, basically to watch and then be told what I had to do. And then I got to run the amphitheater because they said, well, don't you sing in a choir? And I go, you're a church choir. And they go, oh, then you'll be good. Okay, whatever. Anyway, when, I just want to refresh everybody's memory in that way. I'll feel comfortable. When they decided to build the amphitheater, it was the city, mostly. The Arts Council wasn't even quite involved yet. And then, of course, it was with the large donors, Mrs. Kinley and that. And so they decided how we were gonna build it and that. And then the mayor, and I believe it was Jimmy Layton, it could have been Jerry. But Jerry was on the council then, but anyway, the both of them, I remember being in a meeting where they asked the Arts Council to come, and they asked them if they would program it, if they built it. And the Arts Council said, well, we're pretty small, but yeah. And then the city was, this is what we'll do, we'll give you some money, we'll give you a building, the building where they live, and then we'll also have people run the amphitheater to help, even though on the big days, like me, I helped, but I didn't mix music or anything like that, because I'm not even remotely good at it. But anyway, so they asked him to do that, and the Arts Council said, sure, okay, we'll take care of that, and try. And then over the years, it's worked pretty decent. And I look at it now, and I can't think of an organization in the city that has done as much for the city. And they've done it through, I mean, they get paid, volunteers are phenomenal. They get phone calls all the time saying, how do you get that many volunteers to do? And they go through what they do. But I look at what's happened in the city, and as far as the amphitheater goes, it's like an emerald inside of a larger jewel. The park is phenomenal. It's I could never say enough about the park. But then to put the amphitheater inside it, and to see what it's done, and the amount of people that it draws to Layton, and it's just been a real positive force. And I gotta read this stuff because I can't remember. All I'm saying, it's been a great relationship. I doubt anyone can argue with what they've done to make Layton a great place. You can't argue that. They've really done and they've done it with volunteers and people, I won't say not knowing what they're doing, but they just took it over, and so, like I say, we told them we'd help them, we'd give them free rent, we'd help them in the amphitheater, we'll do whatever we can do to make it successful. And I believe they've done everything in the world to make it successful, and we've benefited from it. So as we start talking about changing some structure, in my mind, I just say be kind. I mean, they've done a lot more than if they had told me to do it, would still be back. It wouldn't be as far along because they're by far better than, somebody else doing it. So as we deal with this, my feeling is, personally, we shook hands saying, we'll give you free rent, but if there needs to be some changes, I'm not against that by any means, but I'm still looking back to what they've done for us and what we said we'd do for them. So I just wanted to say that, because I didn't say it in the last meeting.
I appreciate that, Dave.
Yeah.
I do. Is that what you, kind of the staffs, when we were thinking through this, Alex, was more of like, obviously we have a long-term relationship with them, want it to continue. Is that something that, I guess, what Dave Dave's resuscitation of the, kind of the gentleman's agreement, you know, we were gonna take care of you, is that what kind of
Yeah, I
brought
wasn't.
your ideas forward?
Yeah, I wasn't involved in the original discussions at that point in time. It was more the political one. I think it was with Jerry.
Yeah.
Was the people that were involved in that at that point in time. But yeah, we feel like that if, and we initiated it, and we don't, staff doesn't feel bad about that because we needed the dispatch center. And I don't think it was ever intended, or I guess nobody probably thought about it all those years ago.
Yeah.
Is this gonna last forever, or what's the term? But absent the decision we made, which was the right one, to build a dispatch center to provide for that essential service, we wouldn't be having the discussion. And staff does think that there needs to be a genuine look, probably for the benefit of everybody, especially if they're, because they will come when they can't. We're gonna need this space, the city's gonna need this space, is that it needs to be it's a temporary solution. It's not and we think there's opportunities to collaborate with other entities as well to have them find their own home. But we think in the short run that will be, it's easier to say than it is to actually do. And as you know, through the years, the mayor and I have had discussions with county and others that were thought about that we could help facilitate that. None of those have come to fruition because of the other agencies. But I think in the discussions that I'll just speak for myself, but others have been involved in discussions too. I think they agree with that. They don't want to be permanently tied, and housed by the city's graces. I think they want to be out on their own and have that independence. But it takes time to raise the funds and so forth. So I don't know if that answers your question. But yeah, I support what Dave's saying. We think it's a reasonable approach. The 5 years gave them, they touched on it before, but they were concerned about if we don't have we want to move forward to stand on our own, if you will, but we have to be able to have a legitimate runway to do that. If it's a year lease, there's just no way, we'd love to, but there's just no way we can pull that off financially with where we're at. And so that's why they came back and said, 5 years, would that work? And we said yes, and then it would depend on how the others in my understanding is they have a commitment to move forward with that, and I think we do as well. So maybe too much said, but
No, I think that part of like a council discussion is that we're trying to find the best solution, right? We're coming at a new scenario, a new situation. And I've thought a lot about that discussion that we had. I don't want to say it's softened, but it's respecting the long-standing relationship we had with them, with the understanding of the 5 years is we are the ones that kind of took it out from under you because we had city issues that needed to be done. So, and I don't want to get to a situation where it's about some sort of financial, that doesn't matter to me. And so, I guess to your point, Dave, if that's the way you were there when it began, right? And you now are here making decisions when it's now there had to be a change. I'm willing to do what you think's best. I don't have a line in the sand. It was just a discussion. So
I'd like to address that.
if I think that it's having a respect for that relationship and making sure they feel like that
that was
something's
the biggest
important.
thing was,
That's important to me too.
it wasn't written. They shook hands,
Yeah.
type thing, and said, look, we're gonna do this to help you. And they're in a position now that they need help.
Yeah.
And I think, 5 years, I can tell you this for sure, they don't wanna be down here very long. I mean, they want, I don't think anybody would like to office, it's not it doesn't fit the needs as well as what it used to. And so they're really looking, hard, not just, oh, we'll live here for a while, and so, and I just felt like, we asked them to do it, and was my feeling, it wasn't, they came to us and said, hey, we'll no, and we gave them what we gave them because the city said. It wasn't because they said, we'll do this, no, there was none of that. And at times, it was almost, we had to convince them this would be a good thing for them. I mean, because they were so small, and they knew you know, you were jumping into a big thing, but they sure proved, you know, what they've done. So to keep it the same as it was, I wouldn't have a problem. To charge a little bit, I don't have a problem, but, you know, if they're gonna pay rent the same as anybody else, then why are they going in the basement?
Yeah.
You know, so, and I
Clint,
think.
I think Clint wants to say
Yeah.
something.
I left the discussion similar as Zach. But my mind went, I think I mentioned it, but then we had to go at the other meeting, but the economic impact of that time of year.
Mhm.
And I don't know if we've done any analysis, we have some sort of economic, we just kind of know it's a big deal. And so I guess for me personally, I'm taking advantage, or not taking advantage, taking it for granted.
Yeah.
That, like, wait a minute, wait a minute. We're not just talking about space to lease, we're talking about someone that's helping, a group that's helping all of us.
Yes.
And the city, and it's not well, you should be doing this for everybody kind of a thing. That's kind of where I think where the conversation was going, but I've, with more information and thinking about this longer, I think I'm more toward what Dave is talking about and just taking care of them, and then I still know, I mean, hopefully they can find a place, but I think we should take care of them.
Last thing
Being
on that-
involved.
With that, oh, sorry, Jay.
I was gonna say, being involved like I have in the past and being a volunteer and seeing what happens within the organization and how much energy and work it takes to pull off these summer series, let alone everything else. I mean, you know, it isn't just the summer series. I mean, we've got the acting pages, you know, we've got the
You got the film, you
the
got
film,
the
the Friday
Sunday
night films,
concerts.
the
you
Sunday
got,
concerts. I mean,
You know, you got a
to
ton
me,
of-
they're doing so much more for the city and really kind of painting that good feel for all of us for what little bit we're gonna compensate them for, is the way I see it.
And the city gets a lot of credit, takes
The
a lot
city
of that
gets all the credit and they're doing all the work,
It
so I
looks
mean,
like the city's doing it a lot of the times.
It does, so.
You know, and
I'm-
in recent years, they've started helping us with July 4th, the 24th.
Yeah, they've jumped in on a lot of
You know,
things.
which has been phenomenal,
Mhm.
you know, because I remember running the 24th and I got 4 techs trying to be ushers and they're kids and they don't know how to be an usher. You know, and they don't know how to help people. And so it was, seeing that made me feel really good that they, you know, that they actually volunteered to help do that.
Yeah.
I'd say thanks for Weston
Yeah.
thanks for putting some numbers together. It's good to have some comparisons. And I would like to see it the same as it was in the other building and I appreciate the 5-year being there. Just, I mean, 5 years temporary to me. I see it as
Yeah.
temporary, especially in an organization that you know, you put a dollar amount on the in-kind services, but it's tough to put a dollar amount on the overall impact to the city, to the community. So I'm good with the same way it was in the other building, with the 5-year limit, and then we see from there.
So I'll be the last to talk since I didn't speak, but I also brought this up, or not brought this up, but had a lot of the questions. I do appreciate the context and knowing, you know, more about how this came about, where it was more of, hey, can you do this? Because I know that the city was never really interested in putting on programs and programming, even though we had folks doing like JCs and all of the things that you guys were doing
Yeah, beforehand.
So that, to me, is not an issue. I just was pulling up something I had asked Dave Price for a couple years back, which was a memo of agreement that we had with Davis Arts Council. And I know initially there wasn't one, but in 2005, there was one drafted, which I think is good, because I think we have not had a lot of issues, but we have had a situation in the past where if you don't have documentation, that can cause some problems for us when we're trying to make things happen. So I appreciate this new contract, so to speak, that does have dates that allow us to be able to review things, because I think that as time moves on, you always have things that were done a certain way, and things always evolve because it's life, and that's just what happens. And if we don't, I mean, it's the same thing with, you know, some of our other boards that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
When we have contracts or memos, or we don't have them, then we run into issues when things come up later and we don't have anything to go back to. And we're like, you know, when Dave's on, he talks about, you know, how he's 1,000 years old or whatever. But when there's no Dave,
863.
sorry, 863, when there's no Dave around to provide that context, what do we do? And so if for no other reason, but to make sure we have documentation, we have contract, we have something on board or on the books in our history, so we can go back and say, okay, this is the agreement we have, this is when it's being reviewed. I'm not a lawyer, but y'all can tell me, you need to have documentation, and you need to have something that says this is when we're reviewing it, otherwise if things are just in perpetuity, and that's when we run into kind of like the gray waters, and I'd rather us be on the black and white so that we know what it is, we know what it is not. And I'm fine with the 5-year temporary, from what I've understood from those in this room, but also others, that they didn't want to be in this space necessarily either. It's not the most ideal spot for them, but having a contract that has a date, you know, whether that's something that's changed later or not is neither here nor there, but we need to have it on paper, and it needs to say, these are the dates, this is what the expectation is. That way, we all know what it is. There's no gray area. So I'm fine with that. And I, you know, again, I have no issues with any of the services that they provide. You all know that. But I just think that as a city, we need to make sure that we are operating the way that we always do, or the way we portray to do. We want to make sure we keep doing that. So thank you for putting together the contract and having those dates entered.
So on the contract, there was another piece that I think was left blank before. It had to do with the provision of IT services. In the contract, it provided for a certain dollar per hour that would be charged if those services were provided to DAD. Or there was a clause statement right after it says, or through separate contract. Our intention is not to provide IT services. You know, if they have a question here and there, we're happy to help them, but they've been providing their own IT services, and so we've suggested to them in different discussions about they need to have their own connection and separate from ours, and so we want to maintain network security and those kind of things for them and
Yeah,
for
by
us.
far, we should do that, yeah, that's
So
no question.
that was a blank place that I didn't speak to the other day because of the discussion, but our intention through discussions is not to do that. But we will be helpful if, you know, if they have a question here or there, but typically they'll have to work with their own consultant, and they're getting a Utopia connection, and it's going to be reliable and, you know, good, and that we can help troubleshoot, but we're not going to take over their IT services for them under the right programs or software or anything, so.
Okay,
Thank
very
you.
good. Okay, well, thanks, you guys, I appreciate that discussion, and allows us to kind of move forward on that one. Let's go ahead then and go to the next item of discussion here. You're looking like what? No, Clint, I didn't.
No,
What were
I'm
you
just,
looking
I'm so excited. Let's
Okay.
go.
Okay, this next one is a discussion regarding motorized vehicles and subdivisions. And the reason why I brought this up, I know some of you might have had, I know we, you know, way back when we were talking about leasing of scooters, and we all decided, no, we don't want to do that in our city. But since then, you know, time's gone on, there's a lot more e-bikes, there's a lot more scooters out there.
They have their own scooters.
But in addition to that, there's also golf carts, you know, and so, I mean, we're now evolving into, you know, this area that is still very gray even on the state level. So I've asked for help here to kind of, from the chief, to say, okay, what have you been experiencing? What do we need to kind of consider? Because, you know, I know that it's starting to become a bigger issue for all of us.
Right. So, yeah, I'm not sure where you want this discussion to lead, so you guys jump in whenever you want, but obviously you're aware that the statute allows municipalities to come up with their own ordinances that would allow golf carts to be driven on public roadways with some caveats that they, you know, there has to be some direction in that law, meaning where what certain roads they can drive on, times.
Yes.
We've gotta come up with a time limit, to do that, because obviously golfers don't have signals and lights and all those things. And they fall under the general category of a bicycle, so the same rules as a bicycle. But the intent of that law, I believe, logically, is that law was intended for cities that have golf courses that abut public streets. And like Syracuse has golf courses, where you have to cross a public road to each
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
one hole,
Hole to the
and hole
next.
to the next hole, and other seasons. That's the intent of that law, so those cities could do that, so that those folks were doing that legally when they were crossing over public roads. Layton does not have any golf courses that abut public roads where you have to cross over a public road to get from,
Oh,
you know,
from
one
one
nine
hole to
hole
the
to
next.
another.
Yeah.
And so my personal opinion, from a safety aspect, is I see no reason that we come up with those municipal codes that would allow those. We have enough issues, in my opinion, with the electric bikes and the electric scooters, and I don't know that we want to create another one. And in a nutshell, I'll use that, that was used once tonight, I'll use it again. In a nutshell, those e-bikes, those electric scooters, all of them fall under the same regulations as a bicycle. So,
Okay.
Well, wait, whoa. They fall, so you could call them a bicycle?
I didn't
But
say
they go
call them
40
bicycles.
miles an hour.
Well, no, so there's 3 classes of electric bikes, okay? So class 1 electric bike is a bike that you have to pedal
Yeah,
to
the
generate.
electric bikes, I don't have a
that.
problem with.
And but they also have a governor on that stops
Yeah,
at 20 miles
right,
per hour,
yeah.
right? Certainly those can be modified.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to
They're-
be state law.
They're not the issue, because the issue that I see are kids on these scooters that are going, to me, they look like 50 miles an hour. I'm sure it's only 20, but they're on a sidewalk, you know, and they're 8, 9, 10, 12, and they're cruising like
So
ooey.
most of those are built with, I can't remember the logic, but they're only supposed to go 12.5 miles per hour.
And it could be, it just
But
looks
doesn't mean that
faster.
they're not modified or go a
Yeah,
lot faster
I
than
mean,
that.
you know,
the kids find a way, adults find a way to
Well,
modify these things, so there is no
you know,
governor on them, right? So
Yeah, my issue is more children. It's like golf carts. You know, if a kid's driving a golf cart, well, there's no telling looking at it. I mean, it's the same way if I'm driving it, but I've driven on the road a few times, so I'm a little better. But, you know, those are the things that worry me, is all these kids have access to things that go faster than I think they should on streets, sidewalks. They're in their subdivision. I mean, you know, they're coming in and out of cars. Makes me nervous. So that's where I'm looking at. I wish we could do something that could do.
you do have the ability, I mean, the law does allow for municipalities to come up with restrictions.
Yeah.
You can restrict them from sidewalks, you can restrict them from roadways,
Uh-huh.
you can do that, but then the other
Well, then
problem
you
is the
have to-
enforcement
yeah,
problem.
you have to enforce
Right,
it.
yeah.
But it would be nice to have something, instead everybody just goes willy-nilly. You know, I go down to Ellison, I pass it most days, and I always see somebody on there in some kind of thing cruising on that puppy faster than I think they should.
You also have the ability to just restrict certain areas. You can restrict a public park from bicycles. If you restrict it from bicycles, you're restricting it from scooters.
From everything.
And from all of those things, yeah. Those- They
Sad
fall
part,
under the
bikes-
rules of bicycles.
Bikes, you don't get going too fast, as fast, you know, and.
Yeah, I know, this is, like I said, this is a
I don't know the
discussion
answer.
that requires a lot, but I know it's been brought to my attention, I know you
Yeah.
guys have been hit with it too, so I thought, well, okay, let's start it, because it's, I guess, first off, we gotta decide, do we want to try to put any regulations on it, or do we wanna keep it status quo? Because, I mean, that's really where we're at. And if we do wanna try to put any regulations on, then obviously we gotta have a lot more discussion and kind of really fine tune and define which ones we do,
Sure.
what roads, how fast, what, all those requirements, but.
Yeah.
Well, I'd wonder what, two things really. One, what are people wanting when they're asking? But two, I don't know that folks are feeling that their golf cart, their scooter, their e-bike is within the regulations of a traditional bicycle. So I think, you know, first of all, it'd be beneficial just for education, you know, like PSA type of things to let people know. I mean, we've had, in our neighborhood, we've got golf carts and scooters. I haven't seen a lot of e-bikes, I think maybe one. But, you know, folks are messaging in the chat like, hey, you know, kids are, like you said, kids are in the street, I almost clipped somebody, we don't wanna lose people. And so parents are trying to manage their kids themselves, but just as a city, like letting people know, all of these modes of, transportation, they're regulated like a regular bicycle, which means you need to be on the sidewalk with this type of vehicle. A golf cart should only be in a, you know, because a golf cart can't really be on a sidewalk. So
No,
how
it can't.
does a golf cart, how does that?
But it should only be in neighborhoods and not out on,
But that's what I'm saying, if
major
it's
thoroughfares.
regulated like a bicycle, but it can't go on sidewalks, then how does that even work? So I feel like we need
They have to
education.
just like a bicycle, they can travel on the roadway, they just have to be as far right on that road
Mhm.
as they possibly can, unless they're overtaking a pedestrian, overtaking another bike,
Mhm.
overtaking a car that's going slower. You know,
Yeah.
they're allowed to pass a car if it's going slower than that. So they have to be to the side of the road as far as they can.
Mhm. So maybe it's that, maybe it's like that type of mass education first, because I think people aren't even thinking about it, they're like, oh, I'm gonna get this for my kid for Christmas.
Well, and that's,
Yeah.
to me,
And
that's
that's what's happening.
the key. It's not, if they were all adults, I wouldn't feel that, but they're not. There's little kids that are going on these scooters in and out of cars, and I'm sorry, but to have a kid drive a golf cart doesn't thrill me either, because they're like I was when I was a kid. You know, if I'd had a golf cart, man, there would have been dents and everything I went by. But, you know, and so to me, it's an age thing. But I don't know the answer. I will admit that. There's so much to it. And like you say, and then when you pass it, you gotta enforce the thing. And that, you know, you're talking,
yeah.
you know, that's
we can't
everywhere.
burn on you guys
know,
for that.
So it'd be nice to hear if there's, some cities have done some things.
Well,
you know, I don't know.
we can enforce the golf carts because we've got an ordinance, right?
Yeah.
So by state law, you can't unless you have an ordinance that allows it. So
Yeah.
we do enforce that.
Exactly.
We enforce that with discretion, you know.
Sure, yeah.
You know, with education.
Uh-huh.
Is there anything, Chief, that you think that you're not able to do that we could help with? Like, is there something that you aren't able to, you think there's a safety issue out there that the city should be involved in, or do you think that it's okay as it is? I don't mean that like.
That's a
you're-
loaded question, Zach.
We have a list.
Here, he's an attorney.
So there are, I
Need a
forget what they're
specific
called,
question.
yeah, they're not e-bikes, but they're almost like a dirt bikes, but they go a lot.
The Sur-Ron types, yeah.
Yeah, so we have a lot of issues with those, because those go 50 miles an hour. They're not street legal, and so we'll impound those, because they go right down, act like they can just drive right down the middle of the road. And we usually give them a warning or two first, and then
Yeah.
we'll impound it, because it's dangerous.
I mean, obviously, we have the duty to try to make sure people are safe in the city, that's one of our responsibilities, but to your point, enforcement may be difficult, and I'm not sure if I see somebody scooting around, I see it on my street all the time. I'm always, when I'm backing out, I'm not looking for cars, I'm looking for scooters for
Kids.
kids, because we have so many kids on my street. And so, I agree with the education part. I'm just not sure if I see those kids on scooters that I think that it calls out for the city to do something. I think it maybe is just like, it is a bike.
Parents?
And the parents,
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
more education.
That's what
Yeah,
I'm
that's-
education, so
that's
that
all
the
the-
parents know, like.
I don't think if someone is on a scooter and something unfortunate happens, which is bound to happen, I don't think they're like, oh, the city should have been doing something. My first instinct, even though that's my duty as a city official, is to say, well, you know, it's like a bike, and parents should be involved, and if you see it more on the streets, I don't see it as much on the streets as much, but I just worry about having something that pass and have you guys have to go out there and try to enforce it. It'd be very difficult.
The thing that I've noticed, on 2200, there's no sidewalks.
No, I don't have anything to say.
And so they're always in the
It's just
street.
Davis.
Yeah.
He's on.
And they're little kids. You know, they're only going across the street
You did.
and up and over, but, you know, it's just like you say, it's a matter of time, and I'm gonna feel not overly bad, but I'll feel sorry because it's,
We've already had it.
well, yeah, you have. I
We've
know.
already had it.
You had
It's not a matter of.
one
time.
right by my house. that
We've already had them.
Killed a kid in the middle of the night. And, you know, so if there's anything we can do without getting ridiculous, then I think if you're looking at a bike that goes 50 miles an hour, that to me, that's a no-brainer. Get that puppy off the road, and if it's not street legal, do you have to have helmets anymore? Is that a law? Like motorcycles, you don't need helmets? I can't remember. Okay.
With the electric motorcycles, which are more like
Yes.
like a gas-powered motorcycle,
Yeah.
under 18 is supposed to have it.
Okay, so that is.
But over 18, you can be as stupid as you want.
Yeah, well, and that's fine. An 18-year-old, if they do something stupid, that's fine. But, you know, the young kids, it's 8, 9, you know, they're not thinking everything they should, you know, and yeah, that's what.
Tyson, I think you had something to say.
Do you officers have the ability to apprehend anyone of any age if they're doing an unsafe act on any mode of transportation?
Yes.
On the road, on the sidewalk as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's in the statute as far as reasonable speed. And it's generally set at 15 miles an hour. And most of these statutes, you can't be going over 15 on the sidewalk.
That's good.
You gotta yield to pedestrians,
That's
whether
part
you're
of
on a
education.
bicycle, whether you're on motorized scooter or an e-bike, you have to yield to pedestrians. That doesn't mean that they do, but that's, you know.
Well, these are some of the things that would be good to kind of just get out there so people know and say, look, you know,
And
we
they
gotta
do that. Most of
self-regulate
what
here.
when we stop kids for that, it's education, it's not,
Yeah.
you know, it's not apprehension, it's explaining the law to them.
All right, well, that's good. I just wanted to bring that out to kind of let you kind of understand where we're at or whatever.
Yeah, no,
Because I know you've been
it's
dealing with
important.
it quite a bit. Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. Okay, next item, Weston. We've only got 20 minutes left, and we actually have 2 items left on the agenda here, so.
It was a leading question.
Weston, do you want to just go ahead and take on the next item, which is the Title 19 zoning?
You got it.
Okay.
So, before you tonight is a text amendment that would make a modification to our current ordinance regulating single-family and two-family two-family units. So what you're looking at here, so this is an ordinance that fixes an issue that we don't see all too often, but when we see it, it causes generally more issues than what we really want to have. So this is an example of one of the issues that we have seen before. So in this case, this is an infill lot. Home comes in, driveway here, no sidewalk, door ends up being on the side yard, and then porch wraps around. So it ends up giving the context of the neighborhood that there's a garage here, but not necessarily a home, right? So you have a single-family neighborhood that has a standard front home facing the street, and then you have infill where that potentially may not be the case. Give you another example, and this is kind of hard to tell here in this image, but this little bump out is a garage, okay? So there's a driveway that leads here and a driveway that leads here. So through building code, we were able to require that they have a front door, but this actually came in without a door. So it was just a garage and then an interior. And so this is looks just like a garage. And so we're able to get a door on there, but again, this ordinance is really just minor tweaks to adjust that, to get a front door and some clarification on what that looks like. So what we're doing is we're defining what the front facade of a home is. We're clarifying that there needs to be a front door on that front facade, that it can't be entering into garage door space, and it needs to be habitable space that it's going into. and that there needs to be a pathway leading to that door. This is a tied to our ordinance, but it's also a handout that we use. And it's hard to see here, but the existing one and proposed, what we're really doing here is we're outlining right here. We're basically saying this is the front facade along your front street. So another issue that has come up, we've had corner lots where they have been constructed and they've basically taken advantage of the setbacks and said, great, I'm on a corner. I'll call this my front, but I'll put my front door and garage right here. So I get a shorter setback on my real front yard. And then years later, they come in, they say, I'd like an accessory structure, or I'd like a patio or a deck. Well, all that depends on setbacks. And we look at it and we say, well, where's your front yard? And we're like, oh, where is your front yard? Because your front yard, based on how your house is oriented, is here, but based on your setbacks is here. And so now am I looking at something that we approved that's non-conforming? And so we have to go back and do a long history of like, how did this get approved and what really is their rear yard? So in the long run, it causes little issues as well. Again, standard subdivision and how generally we have homes that are facing out to the street. This does make a caveat. Sorry?
That last one's a great neighborhood.
Yes. This does carve out the caveat. So obviously we do have subdivisions that are designed in more of a PRED fashion where they're facing open space. And so it adjusts for that. And then it also adjusts for homes that may be on a little bit more of an odd shaped lot and they have to angle the home to get it in there. It accounts for that as well. So that's what's before you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
My question is, the planning commission,
Mhm.
was unanimous, this is crazy, what are you guys doing? And in the notes it mentioned that this wasn't something that the staff had anything to do with, came from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Can you explain what that's all about and why the
Yeah.
planning commission was so, I mean, that wasn't just, that was 7-0.
It was unanimous. Yeah, and reasonable people can disagree, and that one kind of surprised us.
7 reasonable people
Yes.
disagreed.
Staff still feels like this is a very reasonable, thoughtful ordinance. One of the comments that came up a number of times during the planning commission is that this ordinance is affecting or potentially would affect the smaller home builder, the one-off home builder, disproportionately to your larger home builders. I can't quite connect to that, and I don't necessarily think it's about affecting them positively or negatively. I think it's about building good communities, and I think that's what we're trying to regulate here. So the planning commission didn't see it that way and felt like that it's the majority of the home builders are already doing this and that we don't need to regulate this. I would respectfully disagree and say, when we do have this issue, it causes problems in neighborhoods, and that it's reasonable to regulate it.
Because a lot of the discussion was purely aesthetic.
Yeah.
That was a lot of it, but a lot of your diagrams don't look aesthetic, they look like preventing non-conforming use and stuff like that, so you don't believe that it's just purely aesthetic?
I don't.
There was a question about when EMS or the police show up and you don't know where the front door is, if that happened?
Quite often, well, I won't say quite often, it happens.
Where's the front door?
Sometimes you get notes in the dispatch, the dispatcher gets notes that says, go to the east side, go to the west side, but, bigger problem for us is just having addresses where we can see them, but yeah, occasionally.
You assume that the front door is gonna be on the
front.
frontage of the street?
Yep.
And if it's not?
Especially when you're trying to hustle.
Because it's the front.
Because it's the front.
And go through on that point, I think you pretty much understood it, but this is being redundant, but what's crazy to me about what we currently allow unintentionally is that you can go along and have a traditional subdivision laid out where the front doors always face the front street, that I can come in at any point in time, there's a remnant lot or just even at the beginning of the subdivision, and I can say, I'm gonna determine that my front door is gonna face into the interior in my backyard, but I'm gonna call it the front yard is gonna face the street. So all the requirements, all the things that we put in our backyards, our sheds, our playgrounds, et cetera, are sitting on the street frontage. Just because the homeowner has decided, I want to flip the house, doesn't make any sense. But, so then you have, there is some aesthetics in it, you have access and all those things, but you've got backyards that are now fronting the streets and the visibility. Make sense? And they don't have to be screened, they don't have to be fenced. So there's a lot of issues, and it is very disruptive in subdivisions when everything has been built a certain way, and then you come and do this.
Yeah.
So my only question was, do we know how many homes, well, I guess two questions, how many homes like this exist currently? And then what is the adverse effect, right? So,
Sure.
I mean, I know the planning commission is saying it's affecting smaller home builders, which I don't really understand that either because they create the plans, so they
Sure.
can decide how it's oriented. But how many homes, if we pass this, would then be out of compliance? I know they'd be grandfathered in, but how many are we talking?
We wouldn't be making any homes non-compliant. They would be based on however they were approved. And then I think what we're seeing is more of a trajectory of seeing this more because we have more infills, more people parceling off. And so those two examples came up in the last 6 months. Before that, a lot more infrequent, maybe one or two every other year. And then the third example that I give of the corner lot, that's a frequent thing that comes up.
That's the one those are the ones that I see more often.
Yeah.
Where you've got a home on the corner and, you're looking for the address, you're looking for the front, and you're like, what is it, where are you?
Yep.
Because you just can't tell. So I just wanted to make sure that that if passing this, we aren't adversely impacting other things.
No, and
because that's the only other.
And in that
that's-
example, we're very thoughtful to make sure that we're not, this person that wanted a shed, we don't look at it and just say, well, that was your setback, so that's your front yard, and you can't have a shed where you want it. We're very thoughtful about how it was approved and how the house is functioning.
So I've lived in 2 homes in Layton City that the major street realignment has happened after the fact. And front porches, front doors face different streets than the address and than the access. Is there anything retroactive in this? If a path to a home was changed, so it looks like the street is changed, if the fire department showed up and looked at a street address, they would be looking at the side of a house.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And, I mean, I know that's the problem we're trying to get away from, but is there anything retroactive that would happen in this?
Generally, we'd want to make sure the pathway is at least usually it's connecting to the driveway, which as long as it's getting there, that meets the ordinance. So, but if it's done by a government entity like us or UDOT, then exceptions are made to recognize that they may not be able to fully comply with that.
So it could end up, a street realignment happens, the homeowner might need to extend a considerable amount of pathway. That would be part of that change to that.
Yes.
Yep.
If we impact a property in that way, it's our responsibility to remedy it.
Okay. You good on this?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, sorry, one more thought I had. Anything that would impact flag lots in this?
Flag lots are a good example of where we see lots that are turned askew, and that's why we wanted to make sure that option was available so that flag lots could still get their home in there and it not cause an issue.
Good question. All right. Thank you for presenting that, Weston. Okay, let's go on to item number 7. We have about 9 minutes. Is that enough to discuss any of this, or?
Well, some of it, not all.
Yeah.
There are 2
You
items.
guys want to, it
that
requires a
discuss.
closed door session. You guys want to go ahead and go into that for a few minutes? Yeah, okay, all right. Then I need a motion to